Hi, we're just picking up from where we left off after we'd drawn a number of diagrams, including our property diagram. And I think I'll just add a quick bit more to our property diagram to explain a few more things, and then we'll generate the owl from this. So I'm going to plonk a new boundary rectangle on here and start drawing some curves inside here. So let's start with a curve K, and a curve that intersects it called, let's say, J. And then I'll plonk an unlabeled curve inside here and an unlabeled curve inside there, and I'm going to use these as targets for some arrows. So for example, if I put an arrow G in there, this G is going to end up being an object property. It targets an unlabeled curve, but that unlabeled curve has a bit of extra information about it because it resides in the intersection of J and K. So G is going to end up being an object property whose range is inside the intersection of K and J. Whereas if we plonk on another one, H, some of the arrows, the heads turn out a bit funny to start with, but demo. Let's call this one H, and maybe the labels don't start where you might like them. Let's put him down there. H targets a curve that's just inside J, so the range of H is just going to be J. Now it's also not inside K, so it's going to be J and not K, but sort of concentrating on the idea that it's inside J. So that enriches our model a little bit, and let's just add another curve here as well. Let's add a curve M just to demonstrate that we can, our property diagrams are really intended for stating properties of these arrows, but as a consequence of having to draw diagram pictures, we get a little bit of extra power as well. So we could, for example, plonk on other curves that tell us relationships between things. For example, here M is going to be disjoint from K and J, and we could add hierarchical information or all other kinds of things that are in these diagrams, just with the restriction that we can't have arrows between concepts, so we can't define one concept in terms of its object properties, for example, and we can't define individuals in our property diagrams. So they're largely intended for telling us about arrows, telling us about object properties and data type properties, but some extra information will sneak in as well. Okay, so now we have a bunch of diagrams that describe a fairly eclectic ontology. And now when we press the diagrams button, the convert to owl button, as I said, this is going to get converted to the underlying diagrammatic logic, and then from there there's a translation to owl. Now just at the moment, the translation of our concept diagrams is still in progress. So at the moment the version will ignore these until I get a version up that's got the full translation complete in it, but it will translate property diagrams. So if I press the compile to owl button now, it's going to download me a file, which I will plonk in a directory and get Protege up. We'll open that file, which is that one, and let's have a look. So we ended up with concepts J and K and M, just like in our diagram. These curves were unlabeled, so they don't end up being concepts in our diagram, whereas J and K and M were. And we're expecting M to be disjoint from J and K. So let's just check that. And M is indeed disjoint with J and K. So that diagrammatic property got translated, and we also get our object properties. So for example, owns ends up being disjoint from grades and teachers, and G's range ends up being the intersection of J and K, which is just what we had in our diagram, that G targeted a curve that was in the intersection of J and K, and H will end up having a range that's in J but not in K. So let's have a look at H is in J and not in K. And we can build this up, more and more complex diagrams more and more complex, more diagrams, more properties coming out, and so we can build up whole ontologies or diagrams that sort of begin the process of our ontology just using these pictures. So there's a run through of the demo version of the ontology drawing tool. Give it a go and let me know what you think. Thank you.